Discussion Post 3, Chapter 7. When looking at central limits theory, it can be best looked at when you're looking in the education era when you're taking tests. Tests that you are taking from one particular class as you're seeing what is the score of the class, the average score. The information is not giving you the overall average or the accurate average as it would be if you were taking several different classes and taking those scores and finding the average. That would be more closely to the average of the overall results of the test, versus you just looking at one particular class and using that overall data to come up with the likelihood or the probability that the test is measuring the accuracy. So and that's also when, if you can't tell if the test is accurate, it makes it hard for you to kind of come up with a prediction overall on the test and the likelihood and the standards, and stresses and things of that nature when it looking at the test, due to you don't have the correct amount of data or information in order to diagnose or figure out the overall average of the test. So by using the central limitation theorem, you have a better chance of having a more accurate prediction when you're looking at your data, because your data is consistent over several different areas or classrooms versus it being one particular classroom or one particular area. Chapter 8. When looking at the hypothesis, I would best describe the null hypothesis as being the hypothesis that does not have anything. It doesn't have the differentiation. It doesn't have the differences. It doesn't have the effect. It doesn't have the relationship. Which, if you look at the alternate hypothesis, it has those three components of it. So if I was to explain it to someone who is unfamiliar with statistics, I would tell them, think of the null hypotheses as not having anything, as well the alternate hypothesis has the stuff that you need. While the null hypothesis does not have any of those. It doesn't have a relationship. It doesn't have the differences. It doesn't have the effectiveness. So that's how I would explain the two differences in the hypothesis to help a person in understanding it that has not had statistics before. Failure to understand the differences between the hypotheses can result in a person not having or being able to receive the right conclusion on the program as a whole, due to they do not understand the different results, because of the lack of notification and understanding of the two different hypotheses. So they would not be able, the information that they have gathered may not be correct and may give them an untrue look into a program, due to them not fully understanding the hypothesis, which may result in things such as a worse score than what they believe they should have gotten or that they would have gotten. So I would say that by not understanding the two hypotheses, that it can result and the information and the data that a person is receiving could be definitely wrong and could end up with the person not fully understanding or grasping the information to be to the way that it should be to be correctly used. Chapter 9, I'm not too sure about what or how to explain the t-test. I would say if I was maybe teaching a new way of teaching something or new instructions, or but I'm only doing it for a small percentage of the students in the class that have similar needs or goals, and I'm only teaching it to them, then the results I get from them I can necessarily use as the overall class because they're pinpointed to just one particular group. So I believe that would make it a overall T-score because of the way in which the information does not cover the whole general like special education area. It would just consist of those students that I did in my group that all had similar needs and goals. It wouldn't affect the students that have different needs and goals because I never took the time to look at them. So I believe that is when a T test would be more useful than the Z test when I'm looking at something like in that era of education, when I'm looking at something such as comparing two totally different groups without giving, um, without making my groups, I guess, differentiate in any shape, form of the way.